In this week's episode of My Hero Academia, the second round in the UA Sports Festival comes to an earth-shattering conclusion, with Team Midoriya barely making it past and getting ready to move forward into the third round of the Grand Superhero Tournament. This was a great episode right here, guys. What I especially loved about this episode is how it managed to break convention. If this were any other anime series, Team Midoriya would have been in first place. As it was, this episode had a lot of twists and turns, getting to see a lot of the other characters work together in so many awesome ways, not to mention the introduction of a lot of brand new quirks and superpowers. So let's just dive into what made this episode so awesome. First and foremost, Team Midoriya. They are who everyone is going for. They have the most points, and at the beginning of the episode, everyone is gunning for them, especially Team Todoroki, because of course, he has a lot to prove to not only himself, but to his father and everyone else, especially when he decided to call out Izuku, and their abilities in this episode were frankly just amazing, especially freaking Ida. He was amazing in this episode. I especially loved getting to see one of his secret techniques, and that sort of goes in line with this episode. Almost every single character got to do something completely new, or something that we haven't actually seen from the series yet, and he was able to basically turn up his speed to a form that we've never seen before in the series until this point. And there's a great moment where he basically buckles down, he tells his team members to hold on, and they just immediately fly right past Izuku and his team, and they grab the 10 million points from them. It's such a disappointing moment because you want Izuku to win, yet at the same time, Tenya is not exactly a bad guy either. He's just there to prove himself as well, along with the other people that he is working with. And man, their strategy is pretty damn sound, with Momo being able to create just about any type of weapon, Kaminari using his incredibly powerful electrical abilities to defend and attack against just about anything, and of course Shoto, who can freeze and burn anything with his extreme abilities. And this is when Izuku and his team realize, oh crap, we have got to get these points back. And he realizes that he's going to have to use the all-for-one abilities. And we get this great moment where they both charge at each other, and Shoto decides, reluctantly of course, that he's going to have to use his fire abilities, and he starts to bring it out. But then that's when Izuku comes in, uses the all-for-one abilities to quite literally wipe his fire away, and he's able to control it this time. His arm is still in pain, but he doesn't actually break his arm, and they're actually able to get some points back from them. It's not the full 10 million, but at least they're going to be able to stay alive in the tournament. And throughout the rest of the episode, they desperately try to hold on to what points they have, as well as trying to steal from others. And by the end of the episode, thanks to the efforts of the entire team, and especially because of Fumikage, they are able to make it to 4th place. And frankly, it's just thrilling. But even with that confrontation, one of my favorite things about this episode had to be Katsuki Bakugo and his team going up against the other classes. In particular, the characters of Nato and his other goons who have some pretty unique abilities themselves. Despite the fact that Nato looks kind of just like a normal student, his quirk allows him to actually copy the abilities of other heroes for upwards of 5 minutes, and he can utilize their powers. The only thing is he can't use 2 at the same time, and he seriously ends up freaking out Katsuki's team, being able to utilize his explosive abilities, not to mention the hardening abilities as well. But of course, this just fuels Katsuki's rage, which is just so damn fantastic, utilizing his explosive abilities to propel his team forward. And I absolutely love that he comes across still as almost like a villain, despite the fact that he's a hero, always screaming that he's going to kill his opponents when he goes after them. I also love that he never addresses anyone normally. His entire teammates, he just calls them weird nicknames depending on what they look like Flatface or Raccoon Eyes, yet he still manages to bolster them and get them really pumped up, and just like Tenya Ida, he is able to get in there and get his points back, and it's triumphant as hell, especially when he manages to break through this other guy's abilities, where he's able to spit out these like air bubbles, which can actually be used as shields. And he actually ends up trapping Katsuki in one of these, but he just busts right through with his explosive power, and man, it is so freaking triumphant. And then, of course, there's just a lot of other ridiculous characters who make appearances in this episode. This one guy by the name of Bondo, who I don't even know what to describe what this guy looks like, but he seems to shoot this like weird, nasty, hardening cement from his head. You have this one girl who's like half human, half horse, who does nothing but basically run into walls in this episode. And then, of course, there was Todoroki again. And at the end of the episode, we get what was probably my favorite moment. And it sort of ended in a little bit of a cliffhanger. You didn't quite know how things were going to turn out, with Katsuki and his team jumping over this giant ice wall which was created by Shoto, and he's going after both Izuku and Shoto, and they're all coming at each other, 3 teams at once, and right as they're about to collide, the match is over. That's it. It's called. And at first it makes it seem like Izuku and his team are not going to be able to go any further. But thanks to the efforts of Fumikage, like I said, they are able to steal a little bit of points from Katsuki's team, and they make it into 4th place, just barely skimming by and being able to move on to the next round. And man, you just feel so good for the team here. And I still love that there's still a friendly dynamic between the characters. Like, they could have been really pissed at Tenya, but Uraraka is actually really surprised of his ability. She is a little miffed, of course, but I'm glad to see that there's still a friendly dynamic between these characters. It's all in the good sport of competition, which is something that I really, really loved about this one. Not to mention watching Izuku cry when he found out that they actually made it to 4th place and they were going to move on. Friggin' hilarious. His cry is so powerful that it actually pushes him into the earth and his legs actually get stuck in the ground. It is just great. That, combined with all of the other amazing moments from this episode, both funny and action-packed, made this one of the most exciting episodes of the entire series. I was thinking that the second round wasn't going to be as exciting from the last couple of episodes, but man, this one proved me wrong. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of My Hero Academia? If you can't tell from my tone, I absolutely loved this episode. I think it had some fantastic art direction and some of the coolest action scenes that we've actually seen from the series. But again, one of the coolest dynamics about this episode and the one previous is that we get to see a lot of the characters teaming up and utilizing their unique abilities in tandem with one another. And they come up with some really great and very unique combinations in this episode. Not to mention, I think they're doing a pretty decent job of actually introducing some more of the brand new characters in the series and their unique abilities as well. But what I do have to say is, I think this episode solidified the fact that Katsuki Bakugo is one of my favorite characters of all time. He is such a weird guy because, like I said, he comes across as like an evil villain, yet he's able to use his extreme explosive personality to bring people together in a way that, yes, does slightly annoy them, but it does manage to bring out the best of their abilities. That, and I just love that he makes fun of everyone by just calling them these ridiculous names based on just basically what they look like. And then, of course, there is Shoto Todoroki. When he sees what Izuku does to him in this episode, you can just feel his heart break in that moment when he realizes not only did we just get points stolen from us, but my fire abilities were stopped by just being wiped away, and he was forced to use the fire abilities. You could see how upset he was just in his expression and his eyes. And of course, this is probably going to piss off his very fiery father, who gets confronted by All Might at the very end of the episode. Same thing going on with Izuku and Shoto. They seem to talk to each other at the very end of the episode, and I'm really interested to see what Shoto is going to say, if he's still going to harbor some ill will towards him, or if he's just going to be curious about what his powers are, or maybe this is going to be something that actually brings the characters closer together and actually makes them friendly. It's hard to say, and who knows what could possibly happen in the next actual part of this UA Sports Festival, because this was a unique event where the people actually had to team up with one another, and the next event, they're probably all going to be separated again, and because this is a big battle shonen series, I'm still waiting for like the big tournament. Like, I'm waiting for the fighting to actually begin, and yet we still kind of got it in this ridiculous game of chicken right here. It was amazing that they were able to utilize all of these abilities in such fun ways. What more can I say? This was just an action-packed, extremely triumphant, and super fun episode of My Hero Academia. There's just way too many good moments to count, and you need to check it out. What more? 5 out of 5. It was awesome. I loved it. I absolutely cannot wait for the next episode. And I'm falling in love with the series every single week, to the point where when the anime version actually comes to an end, I'm going to be extremely tempted to actually read the manga version, because I desperately want to know what's going to be happening after that. And I can't promise anything, but eventually when the anime does end, I might start looking at the manga version and might start reviewing and talking about that one as well, because the series is blowing me away just about every single week. I liked the first season. I thought it was pretty good. The second season is just exceeding all expectations and has turned into one of the most fun superhero anime series that I have ever seen. It's got something for everyone. It's got humor, action, and great characters, and a really fun and unique story. So if you're looking for something like that, I highly recommend the series. 5 out of 5 from me. If any of you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. Did you have a favorite scene or superhero moment from this episode? What did you think of Izuku Midoriya's performance in this week's episode? And what do you hope to see from the rest of the UA Sports Festival and My Hero Academia and beyond? Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things My Hero Academia anime related. Make sure to also leave me a comment about this episode. I'd love to talk with you guys about it. And of course, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I will see you guys next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.